Welcome, everyone, to the final session of the 2021 Global Insurance Fraud Summit. Thank you all for attending. It's been a great couple days. And just as a reminder, this content will be available to everyone until January 1st, 2022. So we've gathered together the steering committee, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you on the steering committee for the amount of work and time and effort it was to pull this together. So thank you all. I'm just going to go around the table and introduce everybody. So we have Wade Wicker, who is from IBM, Celeste Dotson, the president of IASU, Per Nordstrom from Larmschanst, Maxence Bison from Alpha, Shambat from Quantexa, Matthew Smith from the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, and Dan Abbott from the National Insurance Crime Bureau. So you can see the organizations and the people and the quality of people that helped pull this together. And again, it couldn't have been done without them. I personally think, guys, that this was a huge success. I think we were able to exceed the objectives that we originally put forth going forward to get this thing going. So I think, in short, it was the mission of this summit is to break down the geographical boundaries and, formalize the global fight against insurance fraud. I was really, really excited. And, I probably said that in every single session that I introduced on how excited I am to introduce the panel or the speaker, and the energy, the collaborative esprit de corps, if you will, or the willingness to share information and intelligence with these organizations was really, really impressive. And the level of thought leaders that we had around the world. I mean, I've never seen that many thought leaders with the experience and knowledge that they have come together at one table. It was just really absolutely amazing. So, I think, some of the key things that I learned from this before I turn it over to you guys is, the collaborative nature of the way we are. I think in South Africa, Garth said it was more, insurance fraud is turning into a contact crime. People are actually getting hurt. It's not as victimless as people are saying. And I think that was really helpful. And I think some of the other things with the regulatory panel talking about data ethics and machine learning and, how we as an industry have to be transparent as we start moving into this artificial intelligence world and the use of analytics. And then I could go on and on and on about the individual countries and some of the best practices that they have and their willingness to support the industry out there. Poland, we did a fantastic job and probably one of the most technologically advanced organizations in the world that you would never even think of, unless we were part of this summit. So, I could go on and on and on, but, and I think everyone else has their own view on this. But, as we close, I just want to kind of start with you, Wade, because I think as a past president of IASU and currently the insurance fraud crimes leader in IBM North America, maybe you can start us off and give us some insights of the benefits of this summit and perhaps where you think the future will take us.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dennis, and I appreciate your work on this as well. It's been kind of overwhelming for you to do this, and you've done a great job with it. So thanks for including us in your fun. Yeah, as IASU president, I had the opportunity to travel around the world and to meet with different individuals and with organizations to improve the knowledge for insurance fraud investigators. And that continues on today. You'll hear from Celeste in a few minutes. I'm sure that we'll continue with that effort. This summit brings to the table a group of insurance fraud knowledge people. Just the folks that come to the table here, sharing in an open environment, realizing that insurance fraud is not just something that occurs in my country or your country or their country, but it's something that crosses borders, and it's something that's been needed for a period of time, and it's exciting to see the progress of the group come together and share that knowledge and the different session topics and the insights that those session topics bring. Again, using this as a springboard to jump into the future. The future itself will bring challenges to the insurance fraud industry. And I think probably the biggest challenge is around the investigations of insurance fraud. We should all be open to make changes as companies and the industry changes around us. And that's tough to do. People, myself included, are stuck in the way we've done things for years and years. But it's neat to see how those changes, if they're made not just for the sake of making changes, but for the sake of making the industry better, will improve efficiencies for investigators and really improve what they're doing. And some of those changes are things as simple as using analytics to improve the efficiency of an investigator's work. Something that used to take several hours to 3 or 4 hours for one of my investigators to do was to go through and research the claim. Now, technology brings to the table that in an automated process that allows the investigator the capability to research and find new trends that are occurring perhaps just in their company alone. So the sessions brought out some information around artificial intelligence and machine learning, things that have been around since the 1950s, but things that are really coming into play today to help insurance companies find new trends and really fight insurance fraud in a new way. So I'm excited about this group, about the folks that were here this year participating, and I hope that everyone will bring someone new to the table next year, along with the folks that were here this year, and continue to grow this organization into the future. So thanks, Dennis. I appreciate that.
No, thanks, Wade. Did somebody else have comments? Okay, thanks, Wade. Really appreciate that. That's really some good insight, and I really agree that that's where the future's going. Celeste, I'll turn it over to you. Just kind of give your input on what you've observed and what the future holds for us.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate that. So it's really been an honor for ISI to be part of this Global Insurance Fraud Summit. This summit is about bringing the fraud fighting community together across the world to learn and to grow and understand the fraud trends that are occurring. And that's so important, not only to the ISIU members, but just to the fraud fighting community. We have got to keep up with what's going on there. We need to make sure that we know what's occurring across, whether it be.
So Celeste, sorry for interrupting you because you're on a roll there, but your microphone seems to be breaking up, and I just want to make sure that everybody has.
Let me do this. Hold on for a second, and I'll take you off.
And there you go. Take you off mute, and we'll be good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, much better.
All right, let's try it again.
All right.
Technology. I'm going to talk about technology, and obviously I haven't mastered it yet, so, or at least my AirPods. So what I was saying was, ISIU is really honored to be part of this Global Insurance Fraud Summit. This summit is so important not only to our members, but to the fraud fighting community. This is about bringing the international community together to learn from each other, to share what the fraud trends are occurring, and to make sure that we are recognizing how to fight those. And that's what this summit has done. And it's just so critical to bring the industry leaders together to talk about and Wade talked a little bit about the tools that are available, finding solutions to the fraud that's out there. This connecting as an industry is our power. So you think about what the fraudsters do out there, and no longer is fraud that's being perpetrated contained in one region. The physical distances, the barriers no longer matter. The world is accessible to the fraudsters by just one click. And so we have to come together as a community in forums like this to share our knowledge and to learn from each other. It's so critical. And so that's why I think, what we have done to bring this Global Insurance Fraud Summit together virtually, and we did it virtually in the past, which, looking forward to at some point being able to do it in person as well. But recognizing that this is so critical to our industry and to our leaders. So that's why I think, for IASIU, why we feel this is so important to be part of and to help create. So I thank you for that opportunity. And I think that as people viewed the various breakouts, have hopefully taken things away that they can utilize as they move forward in their identification and fight of fraud. And as I think about what the future holds for this summit, I think that it's a necessity. It's critical. We cannot stop this. We have to continue to evolve and grow this summit so that we include all of those across the globe that are fighting insurance fraud and allow them to connect and share the knowledge. So I see this as something that will never go away and is going to become such a critical piece of our fraud fighting, I'll say, tool belt as we move forward.
Great. Thanks, Les. Really, really great. And I think there's a lot of good points that I've wrote down a few that we'll talk about in the end if others don't touch upon it. So with that, I want to turn it over to Maxence from Alpha in France and just kind of get his input from a global perspective.
So thank you, Dennis. First of all, I would like to extend my deep thanks and gratitude to being a part of this steering committee. This global summit is a huge success. It's probably too early to speak for our members, but my team and I are convinced that this summit brings a real global view on fraud fighting all over the world. Despite different culture and level of maturity in the fight against fraud, we share the same issues and topics of interest. Fraud schemes, organized crime, fraud risk in underwriting and claims digitalization process, data privacy, tools to support the fraud prevention from detection to decision, etc. On the other hand, we have also specificities by countries or region. In all cases, we can feel a strong and positive energy of each speaker. We are all committed to limiting the effects of insurance fraud. It is reassuring, it is inspiring, and it's encouraging to explore further. So the question, I think, it's how to go further together. My point of view, we should probably start with a few topics to be more efficient together. The next meeting of IASIU Europe in June 2022 could be the right time to identify these topics and to create this working group. Next global summit could be more focused on these subjects to have a vision of how each country solve or try to solve the issue and how we can identify the best practices. So you can count on Alpha to contribute to the reflection and to be a part of this working group and on this global fight.
Thanks, Maxence. And the stuff that you've been doing at Alpha since you've taken it over is just phenomenal, putting them on the global platform. And we always appreciate your insight. And I'm so glad that you're able to join the steering committee with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, so next, Sham, let's turn it over to you from Quantexa perspective and see, get some of your thoughts, if you don't mind.
Yes, sure. So firstly, thank you, Dennis, and thank you to you and the wider team. What you've put together is truly amazing. And, I've been fortunate enough to have been part of this summit since its inception with you and some of the wider team. But I do want to say that I am proud to co-sponsor it this year as part of Quantexa, but also as part of the fraud fighting community. One thing that has amazed me is how it's grown each year since its inception, with the attendees participating from all around the world. I just want to say thanks as well to all of the participants who attended the panels, viewed the content, presented during the last few days as well. Like every year, I especially love the insights from each of the countries who provided an overview. And it is apparent that there are a lot of common themes and threats in all of the different regions. It is always fantastic to hear from the key industry leaders around the threats, and as Maxence mentioned, around the best practices as well. But what I like about this summit is that the participation does not stop when the summit closes. The contact continues between members throughout the year. And when I worked with you, Dennis, to actually start this concept, this was probably one of our most ideal scenarios. And it is great to see some of that come to life. But as Celeste mentioned, I will say that there is a lot more that can be done and should be done. Fraud, as we have seen, is truly a global problem. And whilst events like this do bring the key stakeholders together, the insight, the knowledge, and best practices can be shared more widely in order to combat this issue. We have to continue to collaborate across borders, regions, and languages. One thing I did want to say is that as part of the steering committee, I believe all of the steering committee together will support any initiative we can in order to make this happen. I appreciate that when we go back to our day jobs, there are competing priorities and additional challenges to overcome. But if the participants have any ideas or want to discuss anything further that's been presented as part of this forum, I just want to say that we will ensure to make that happen. The last thing I want to say is that I look forward to next year's summit. It would be great to start getting ideas for presentations, panels, and country overviews, so we can ensure to build on the work that we have done this year to make next year's Global Insurance Fraud Summit even better and useful for the attendees. Thanks, Dennis.
No, thank you, Shem. Great insight. And, it's been a pleasure working with you since the inception of this. So, and look forward to working with you long into the future. So thanks. Dan, you know what? Sorry, Dan. I want to go with Per because I skipped him for some reason. But Per, can you want to kind of give us your insight? Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Dennis. I would say that this Fraud Summit has been very interesting in very many point of views. For example, how the countries are working with the fighting insurance fraud, and organizations like national insurance associations, how they are organized to fight insurance fraud. I mean, there's a lot of organization in Europe, and from 1 to 15 people who's working in this organization. And we have, for example, IFB in UK and NICB, who has even more people who is working with fighting insurance fraud. And also interesting to listen to the different databases. Insurance Europe has shared information before about the database which are existing in Europe. And there's very difference between them. I mean, from claim register to databases with suspect database, or even proven fraud databases. So, and even if GDPR is the same in the whole Europe, there is national laws which are stronger and which complicate cooperation between insurance companies and also cross borders. And I think for the leaders who's listening here, I think it's very important that they send people who is working with fighting insurance fraud, like investigators or other people, to really train them and educate them so they can even be better in doing the work. And I hope that they now have listened to the presentations from Celeste and even from me about the IASI, what IASI can do with training, education. And it is a great opportunity to send people to these seminars and conferences. So, and really I hope the next Insurance Europe seminar is next June, as Maxence said. And I really hope this seminar will bring more attendees at this seminar. I will also thank you, Dennis, and your staff. Has been a great work to work with you. And I'm sure also that this organization or this platform will even be much bigger in the future. I will say also that about IASU in the future, I hope that we will grow even more, and hopefully we can open some more branches, for example, in South Africa and Australia, which will also do this work even more international. So thank you, Dennis, very much.
No, thank you, Per, and it's great, and I just do want to remind everybody that in June, IASA Europe will be holding their conference in Malmo. So please feel free to reach out to Per directly or go to IASU and get more information on that. So it's filling up quickly. It's going to be a really great session, a really great educational opportunity for everybody that's interested in insurance fraud. Thank you. Dan, over to you, my friend from National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it. As others have said, NICB is really proud and honored to be part of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit for the past 3 years. And Dennis, we really appreciate your leadership in organizing this event. I remember several years ago, having conversations with you and others that it would be really important to expand the reach from a global perspective to organizations in the industry that have a common mission of fighting insurance fraud. So I think from NICB's perspective and our member companies, the summit has allowed our members and our folks at the National Insurance Crime Bureau to learn from our colleagues and other fraud fighting organizations around the world, right, that share a common passion for detecting, preventing, and investigating insurance fraud. As we all know, insurance fraud isn't the sexiest crime, but we all believe and have a passion that it's important that we stick together, share information, break down walls and barriers, and really take a different approach to fighting insurance fraud. NICB and the Insurance Bureau of Canada for years have always had a strong working relationship in sharing information across borders, but the next step is to expand that out to other countries. And it really has allowed us to, the summit has allowed us to identify contacts in a certain country or with a certain insurance company in case we ever need that contact, right? This is a great opportunity to do that. And we also know that here in the States, certain fraud schemes are regional in nature. So we may have a certain type of fraud scheme in New York that's different than LA. And if you expand that thinking outside the US, there's probably different fraud schemes throughout the world that if we became smarter in understanding what those current threats are, we all face as the current threats, and then it's an opportunity too to identify future threats that a different country may be experiencing that may be transitioning over to the States or to Canada or to Mexico or wherever throughout the world. And if you really think about it too, is technology shrinks the world, and the technology advancements that insurers continue to implement, from automation to digitizing their processes, I think fraudsters will take advantage of some of those gaps and loopholes. So, I think we just need to continue to have that thought process of how do we continue to share information. And NICB has been around for almost 110 years, and I think we do a really good job of sharing information, but within the US. But as I stated, I think we just need to continue to look for these opportunities, and the summit is a great way to look at different trends, schemes, threats, and this forum allows us to do that. So we really appreciate it, Dennis, and your leadership, and look forward to the future.
Thanks, Dan. You know what? And I really owe you a special thanks as well, because I think we've tapped a lot into the NICB from Mr. Glaoui speaking and giving an overview, the Medical Fraud Task Force, the International Crime Panel, and all the input that you've had as well. It's just you're industry collaboration and willingness to share what you guys have done over the past 110 years with the rest of the world is really phenomenal. So thank you, and kudos to the NICB as well.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks.
Sure. So to kind of pull it all together, Matthew, my friend, who has really been my the heart and soul guy here for me to bounce things off of and keep me on track, I'm going to turn it over to you for your comments.
Well, Dennis, thank you for those fine comments, but really I'm going to turn it right around, because it's been a true privilege and honor to work with you and your team in pulling together this year's virtual global summit. But, you know, moving beyond that, what I was really thinking of as I look at this screen and have heard the fellow members of the steering committee talk about this year's virtual summit, is that everybody on this screen is a friend. Somebody I count not only as a coworker in the fight against insurance fraud, but a personal friend and a personal ally. And if you think about it, when we started this back in 2019 in Barcelona, that's the goal. The goal is to bring together you who are watching this as the world leaders in the fight against insurance fraud, so that we share information, we talk about the future. But you know what? Most importantly, we become friends and allies. And that's what the Global Summit really stands for at its core, is the ability for us to get to know each other, share cutting edge information on what's working, what we can do to improve in the fight against insurance fraud, and simply get to know each other better so that we have those trust and those bonds of sharing. So when I really look over the last 2 days, I'm really mindful and grateful for all of the participants from around the world who took time from their schedules to join this great summit, for those that put the extra effort in to present. And I'll tell you, those of you who are watching this, everybody has a seat at this table. So we've established a portal for you to communicate with us, and it's real simple. It comes through the coalition here, and it's globalsummit@insurancefraud.org. Again, globalsummit@insurancefraud.org. And we really urge you to give us your feedback from this year's summit, your suggestions for going forward in 2022 and beyond. And that if you'd like to be a part of the programming for next year, we're already going to start that process. And as several others have mentioned, we look forward to IAZU Europe in June of 2022, to joining Per and everyone in Malmo, and starting to put together what the future for hopefully a return to an in-person global summit will look like in 2022 and the years beyond. So as we wrap up this year's summit, I'd like you to think of a couple of things. You know, number one, over the last 2 days, we have probably gathered together more world anti-fraud leaders than have ever been gathered together on a virtual platform before, as actual regulators, leaders in the industry. Yes, we've done some webinars that have involved people from around the world, but you who are part of the Global Summit are the leaders. And this is really the largest group of true leaders that has ever been pulled together over these last 2 days. So let's really give thanks for that. Let's use that as a springboard and a foundation to build upon for the future. But more importantly, what better way to celebrate and honor this particular week, International Anti-Fraud Awareness Week. And I think it's so important that we had this summit this particular week, and that those of us around the world really honor that week by taking time from our schedules to participate in this program. So a final thought from the coalition: we're proud to be a part of the steering committee, very proud to be a part of the Global Summit. As the only organization that exists in the United States, and as far as I know around the world, that is a consumer advocacy organization in the fight against insurance fraud, let's never lose sight of the fact that while we gather together as government leaders, industry leaders, the great technology leaders that are shown in the summit and on the steering committee that provide services and support that all of this ultimately comes down to consumers, to the citizens around the world that we are helping to protect from becoming victims of insurance fraud crimes. That's where our future lies, protecting the citizens of the world against the ravages of insurance fraud. And I think this week we've taken a tremendous step forward in that process and look forward to seeing everyone in 2022 and building for the future. Thanks, Dennis.
No, thank you. And thank you all once again. And a final thank you to everybody that attended this. So look forward to collaborating more in the future and building upon this. So with that, we'll officially wrap up, and a cheers to all my colleagues, and look forward to June in Malmo.